Hey there, welcome. Today I want to talk about nature, Maya, or illusion, and some metaphors that are commonly used in Advaita or non-duality, and how these relate to reality and God. So first, nature is God. We can hear this in the different philosophies of non-dual practitioners where they see the world as God. This is similar to pantheism in Western philosophy. This is very common in Kashmiri Shaivism or non-dual Shaivism, where everything we sense and experience is God. It's really similar to Dzogchen and Mahamudra to some degree, where samsara and nirvana either don't exist in how they express them, or it is the great wisdom. The great wisdom is just the great perfection, the Buddha, the one, the nondescript, non-conceptual truth of all existence. And when they talk about it, it's everything is that. It's all our sensations, it's every object, it's every experience, it's all that is. And it's not cut up into parts or categories. But what is, reality is God, is perfect. And we hear this in bhakti saints like Anasuya Devi or Jilalamudi Amma, where she kind of tries to get rid of this dichotomy between science and religion, and basically says she sees no difference between nature and God. Nature is God. And this is important for a lot of reasons. Firstly, let's say we have a tendency to already believe in God or a higher power. We need to understand that for God to be all-powerful, boundless, the best possible thing, it can't really have limitations. It can't have a wall, can't have a place it can't reach. It can't have anything separate from it. Otherwise, that means it's limited, and that's not as good. Like, it's not as powerful, it's not as big, it's not as, boundless. And thus, everything that is, which includes nature and our experience as, organisms on this planet, is also just God. And this is also precious because we're destroying God. Just part of God. God can't actually be destroyed, but we're destroying nature as a humanity, as a civilization, a global community. We extract and disseminate and rip apart the natural world for useless conveniences for the most part. There's good things we do in some vein. It's things that help humans live longer, healthier, happier lives. But then there's many things that are just completely useless, excess waste. So understanding nature as God brings a much needed ecological perspective to our practice, to our sadhana, to our lifestyle, which I think gets lost on a lot of spiritual people. There's an inkling and a knowingness of treat people well and don't harm nature, but you often pushed aside for the sake of God, for the sake of spirituality, for the sake of spiritual pursuit and seeking. But this kind of defeats the actual reality of our situation, which is that God is all around us, all within us. It is every plant, every leaf, every stem, every branch. It's every insect, it's every bacteria in the soil. And so when we're seeking God or the great perfection or enlightenment, and we're ripping apart that which we seek, we kind of create our own problem. Now let's say that we come to understand that God must be so much more than nature, because nature is timely, it's slow, has seeming rules, and also has what we'd call limitations. Well, the issue with this is that, like I say all the time, we don't see everything. We don't smell everything. We can't feel the sensation of everything that exists. We can't hear every sound. We can't sense every wavelength. And nature is abundant with colors and sounds and vibrations that we can't detect even with our technology. So when I say nature is God, I'm also saying nature is so much more than what human sense data provides. And that nature is also so much more than our labeling and our interpretations, our theories, our hypotheses, our data of biology and chemistry and so on. Nature's literally infinite, infinitely more than we know. And I think people that kind of engage in ethnobotany and indigenous perspectives and rituals, they can sense this. They can feel that the ecosystem at large, with its abundance of organisms and moving parts, has a grand intelligence, has a grand patterning beyond what we normally sense. And this is just God, one of the manifestations of God. Ram Dass is quoted to say nature is just a manifestation of God. Not that we need any other person to validate this logic, but this helps us ground ourselves in what's here. It's also why the Chan Buddhists write so much poetry about nature without really giving it any evaluation, almost no good bad labelings. It just talks about nature, the cranes swooping on the water, the sun rays on the moss, the mist in the mountains, the petals are falling again this year, things like this, because it's perfect just as it is. It needs no embellishment. It needs no moralization or evaluation. It's perfect as it is. But we don't see it. And to have the eyes that see it, we kind of have to ignore our two eyes a little bit. We have to go beyond our sense data. This is where yogic practices come in. I think a lot of these practices, a lot of these techniques are really trying to break us free from our rigid sense data, to get to a place that we allow sense data to happen, but we don't see it as the end-all be-all of truth and knowingness. And we kind of know deep within our awareness that's always present that there's so much more to this infinite reality that our biology offers us. And this kind of helps me bridge this misunderstanding in a lot of non-duality, which is this talk about illusion, about Maya, about the wave and the ocean, about the rope and the snake. And so how it gets communicated a lot of the times, and I think falsely so, I think it gets communicated by unrealized people that just are attracted to non-duality, is that we are experiencing an illusion. We are experiencing Maya, all the things in the reality, all the parts, all the, the physicality even is all illusion. It's all Maya, when in fact, reality is just Brahman. And we have two camps of thought oftentimes. So you have this, it's all illusion kind of perspective, and it's actually just Brahman. We have to transcend our physicalness. And then you have, all the physicalness is also just Brahman. even to the point of like, we look at a rope and we mistake it for a snake. In some perspectives, the experience and the hallucination is real. That is also Brahman. That's also Shiva. In other perspectives, it goes to the extreme of like, our entire experience is snake, and we need to get rid of that hallucination to just see pure Param Brahman, which is boundless, always has been, always will be. Another common metaphor is the wave in the ocean. It says that everything we see and experience, all the impermanence and the fluctuations, the comings and goings, these are the waves of the ocean. They're impermanent, but the true reality is just the still, vast, boundless ocean. But it's even a little simpler than that. It's that the ocean is its multiplicity. The ocean is all its fish and particles and seaweed and waves and salt and everything. It's its stillness, it's its chaos, it's its tsunamis. None of that is illusion. And that's a bridge that's required to see nature as God. We need to see that our sense data isn't illusion. It's not like wrong. It's not some hallucination or lie. It's just not everything. We're seeing part of what is real, and it's real, the thing we're seeing. Our interpretations of them are real experiences, even if the interpretation doesn't match fully reality. And all of that is God. And the nature has no divide with us. We are just another animal, another organism, breathing, giving and taking in the ecosystem on the planet, in the ecosystem of existence. It's important because I think to an unrealized person or someone that hasn't had certain awakenings, I'm not enlightened, but I've had certain insights, is that we can't really react properly to the word illusion a lot of the time. It just ends up being deception and lies and fake and hallucination and delusion. It's too associated with something that isn't really the point of calling reality an illusion. The beauty of some of the non-dual lineages is that they're aware that this language is also insufficient, and they, try to explain how everything is wisdom, everything is Shiva. But we don't really need to use the word illusion in this way. We don't really need to use the word Maya. I think inescapably incomplete makes a bit more sense. It's not even in our control fully to have this incomplete sense data. We're just here. That's just the will of infinity. Our sense data is picking up patterns that are real within infinity. It just doesn't pick them all up. And it might interpret them incorrectly, but it's true that we exist and we are interpreting them. If we allow this to be, if we embrace this and just give trust to the bubble of life that we are given, which also includes our family and our loved ones and our job and our surroundings and our home and our community, not just our sense data, we can kind of realize nature is what's here, and give it a reverence, give it a love, knowing that we are modest and humble in our experience, and so is everybody else. And that's the same as just having faith and revering God. And it's even more appropriate because we don't put a boundary on God. We don't separate God from what is. We don't put God in heaven. We don't put God in a murti or an idol. We don't put God in a story and a narrative. We let God be everything, free, liberated, limitless, which means it's permeating every cell of every organism, every molecule, every breath. And the reality is less about illusion and truth, and it's more about being. It's more about being it and realizing that there's no individual within the ecosystem of existence. It's just God playing out. So nature is God. Nature is more than what meets the eye. And nature isn't something other than us. We are just a leaf on the tree, all of us part of this big forest. Thank you so much for watching. Om Sayam.